record, and you're right to go, Scott.
Awesome. All right. Hello, everybody, and hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Women's Health in a Western World. This is a subject that I am super, super passionate about after the last couple of years dealing with some health issues myself and having to navigate this place and this world as a woman, as well as working with a lot of clients who have things like autoimmune conditions and other bits and pieces, and helping them navigate to be empowered through the medical world, as well as helping them somatically and holistically. I have a bunch of beautiful panelists with me today, which I will introduce. And when I introduce you guys, I'd love you to take a moment to not only introduce who you are, but what you do and what you're passionate about and all of those sort of fun things. So I'm going to start as where are my little squares on the screen with Jen. So Jen, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name's Jen Smith. I am from Illinois, USA. My company's name is Natural Energy Healing. So I'm a Reiki and quantum healer and also a mindset coach. So a combination of mindset and energy healing is phenomenal for healing and many other things.
Beautiful. I love that. And please forgive me if I pronounce this incorrectly. Candida, is that correct?
Candida, yeah, Candida.
Got it.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, so yes, my name is Candida and I'm from Adelaide, South Australia. And my business is At Ease Candid Health. And that reflects my name, Candida, meaning clarity. So I think clarity very important in everything. I've been in business for more than 3 decades now. And so I've learned a range of things that, because everything I believe works together. So I'm an energy healer. I do a lot of therapies like Bowen therapy, lymphatic drainage, acupressure. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I'm also a spiritual life coach and hypnotherapist and a yoga teacher. So don't do all of that in one day, but you know, they fit. They all fit together, and it's just been an amazing journey so far. And I look forward to more.
Yay, that's so amazing. And Catherine, what about you?
Hey Sky. So yeah, I'm from about an hour south of Sydney in Australia currently, and I am a leadership coach, an intuitive healer, podcaster, author, and a speaker. And my focus is empowering women, especially healers, to actually create a business that aligns with their soul, so they can actually live fully and nourish their body, their mind, as well as their soul through their business. So really coming back to themselves and allowing that to happen whatever way it needs to.
Oh, I love that so much. Amazing. And Denise.
Hi, yeah, I'm energy healer. There's like Candida says, I've done so much over the years that it all blends and emotional code, forensic healing. There's so many others, and I just incorporate all that. And my mission is helping people self-heal, give them all the tools that I know so they can self-heal for generations to come. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. And I'm your facilitator today. My name is Sky, and I'm a shadow work coach, as well as a generational and past life trauma healer and a modern day witch. I am so excited to be here today. As I said, this is something that is super passionate about after diving straight into it. So I've got some questions for my lovely panelists, and I'd love to share, love you guys to share if you have any sort of personal experiences or working with people, as I'd really love this discussion to be really empowering for everybody. So I'm going to start with you, Denise. Can you share an experience where the Western medical system has failed you, and or someone that you may know, trust, and care about? And what would one piece of advice to anyone listening to this be if they are also struggling in sort of the medical Western world with getting any sort of help or diagnosis or anything like that? immediately.
What's come forward for me is my daughter, when she was about 5 years old, she's asthmatic. She developed asthmatic earlier, but then navigating the system to be able to help her, she'd got really sick, and I took her into the hospital, into emergency, and they said, "Oh, it's asthma," because they knew she was asthmatic. And I said, "No, it's not." And they said, "Yes, it is." I said, "No, it's not. She's not breathing like she usually breathes with asthma." I said, "It's something different." And they treated her as asthmatic. So they gave her a lot of cortisone, not cortisone, whatever they give for children so they can, and her heart started racing and all that sort of stuff. And they all disappeared. No one would come over. And I kept going up to the counter and saying, "It's not asthma, it's something else." And now she's climbing the walls and she's really suffering. It's not asthma. And I think it was about 3 hours of me keep going back. "You need to look at something else. It's not asthma." And then they came back and said, "Okay, we're going to do some x-rays." She actually had pneumonia, so which is totally different to asthma, and they had treated the wrong thing. And he says, "Oh, it wasn't about being right. It was about me, um, being there for my daughter and going, I know my daughter. I know everything about her, and I know that what she has is not asthma right now." So me standing up and speaking for her because she couldn't speak for herself. And, we even don't do that for ourselves. We believe what we're told. So it's actually going and saying, and like they looked after her, knowing then that she had pneumonia. And he says, he comes over and he says, "Oh, I really apologize." I said, "I don't need any apology. I just need you to be aware that we know our children, and you need to listen to mothers because they're with them 24/7. So it was being able to advocate,
Yeah.
speak up for her, and keep asking the questions. Don't just, no matter what happens with yourself or with your children, don't just sit on the fence and just believe. It's about advocating for yourself or whoever you're there with, supporting. So for me, that was a real learning to say, okay, is that really what I'm feeling? And because you know your children and you know yourself, so it's really feeling into yourself and goes, does this feel really right for me? That self-advocation, that self-intuition, that self-asking, and then expressing that outwardly and
Yeah.
getting to where you need to go and advocating. Yeah, so that was my experience of many. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I love that. And I love the piece of like knowing if something is not sitting right with you, actually, instead of just going, okay, yeah, they must know more or anything like that, actually standing up and saying something. Catherine, do you have anything to add or share with that?
I was sitting there going, which episode do we talk about? But the one that popped to my head was earlier, very similar, being a mum. When just after I had a newborn, had no idea what I was doing, my first baby, and I had trouble breastfeeding because I have a shoulder problem. And no one would show me actually how to hold my baby to adjust to my physical difficulties. And so he wasn't putting on enough weight. Now, the fact that this is such an issue, like as soon as your baby's born, was very concerning. So my experience with the community health nurse was after interviewing me to make sure that I wasn't in a domestic violent relationship and questioning if my husband was abusing me, which was the first point of interaction with them. They then went to tell me that I was starving my child and I wasn't looking after him because I couldn't get enough milk flow. However, breastfed babies don't put on as weight as quickly as formula fed babies. So they're using the wrong scales to start with. So I was pushing back and challenging. And then they tried to tell me that he had a tongue tie, a lip tie, and a cheek tie. Now, my background's a speech language pathologist, and I said, he doesn't have any of those things. And they said, what would you know? you wouldn't know anything. And I said, this is what I've been doing for my career. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And they put me in quite a state of depression because, as a newborn mum, you're questioning everything that you're doing. And to the point that my husband actually contacted them and said, do not come near my wife again. If you do, we'll actually proceed, further actions against you. And I was very grateful for him stepping in because they actually put me quite into a state of depression. And so then, luckily, because of my background, I had colleagues I could reach out to. And so I did. And she basically, all she had to do was show me a different way to hold him. And I had to use shields, which weren't a big thing either. And I ended up breastfeeding him till he was 4.5. So, and this was like the community health nurses saying you have to put him on formula, you're starving your child. And what it turned out being was I went to an osteopath, so an alternative kind of thing, who just released a few muscles under his tongue. And if we had cut his tongue, he can actually touch his nose with his tongue. So if we had cut his tongue, he would have had massive feeding issues. He would have had speech issues and all these things. And it's actually ended up being quite a big epidemic amongst the feeding community and speech therapists and things like that, where because the baby can't feed, and actually instead of getting to know the mum and know what's going on and helping them trying to brainstorm and work through that, they're just cutting these tongue ties, which then end up being long-term issues, and always end up in a speech pathologist office because they have lisps or they can't keep their tongue in their mouth and all these other things. So, and you can't reverse it. Once you cut them, you can't actually undo that. So for me, it was very much honoring that intuition because they just kept telling me, you're not feeding him enough. You're doing all these things wrong. And I had a naturopath supporting me. He's like, he's healthy. He's growing, even to the point he'd grown 5 centimeters in a couple of weeks and didn't put on enough weight by a couple of grams. So I'm using Australian terms here, but I was like, they go, oh, that's concerning. I said, he grew 5 centimeters in length. Where do you think the energy went to? Clearly, he's growing and he's happy and he's healthy. So I feel it's like any mum out there, do not accept what they tell you. If your gut is telling you something else, this is where your mummy intuition really comes into play. If someone's telling you something, and even the fact they dismissed my professional background, to me was already red alerts because they're not looking at you as a whole person. They're just there with their checklist and ticking off what they need to say. So, really honoring that and asking questions, that's the biggest thing. Ask questions, and if they can't answer you or dismiss you, they are not the people for you.
Yeah, most definitely. I love that, Catherine. And I can really relate to that, similar but different. When I had my second born, I had him 3 weeks early, and he actually lost weight, not gained it, even though I was feeding quite regularly and all that sort of stuff. And I had the health nurse come to my mother-in-law's house because I was living rural at the time, and actually fully dressed me down for how I was leaving him sleep because he would sleep for 5 hours or a period or anything like that, that I had to wake him up and do all this sort of stuff. And I went, something doesn't sound right. I'm going to go to my GP obstetrician who delivered this baby and ask her. And she actually said it's quite common for babies that are born earlier than their due date for them to actually lose weight before they gain it because whatever goes on. So again, I was just like, no, doesn't sound right. I'm going to actually go ask someone above you right now. And even on top of that, even for self, really actually asking those questions. And I really want to sort of share something where at the age of 36, I just turned 38. I had a whole bunch of random symptoms come through and I really wasn't feeling that great at all. And I ended up going to see my gynecologist because I had surgery previously. And I was like, am I still healing or anything like that? And he gave me a list of all these things that I could have with the amount of symptoms that I had. And I'm very lucky that he's very much like, we're going to test you for everything from low iron all the way up to chronic fatigue syndrome type thing. And even he turned around and said, look, I'm going to test your hormones. I really don't think it's your hormones, but I'm going to test them anyway. And lo and behold, I'd entered early menopause. So it was, and the amount of doctors, practitioners, and all that sort of stuff. Oh, you're too young to go into menopause. Cool. If I had a penny for every time I heard that, I'd be fucking rich. But no, I'm not actually too young. This is a period of time where it's really not spoken about in that beautiful age of perimenopause. So, if something doesn't feel right, 100% ask those questions, go get a second opinion. Don't just go, oh, I'm going crazy or anything like that. And Jen, I would like to ask you, what are some ways that we can empower through feeling unheard in the system or in any system, really?
Yeah, I would say that's one with the healthcare system is that we have to be our own advocate, like we've heard the ladies already talk about. That's the number one thing. If you have symptoms, if you already have something going on with you, to do your own research and make sure that you understand what you may need. And you have to speak up with the doctors. And if you have a good doctor, they are more than happy to answer the questions for you until you can fully understand what they're saying and they'll listen to you. Um, I've been very fortunate to have good doctors. I don't go to the doctor very often, but whenever I needed to, I've had good doctors. I also go with my family members whenever they have major things going on, um, and to make sure that everything is going well. The thing I noticed was the amount of medication that's dispensed. And it's just that it's a regular, everyone's doing their job. You have so many people doing separate jobs. No one's really talking together at a table about this patient. So they're just reading off a chart and dispensing medicine without really understanding what the patient's going through. So that's what I really pay attention to. And that's what I've noticed the biggest problem, especially pain medications, you know, with my mother just giving two penny pain medications, but yet she's got to get up and walk after surgery. Well, there's got to be a balance. And if you have I was fortunate that a nurse came on that was very seasoned and she understood. So she was very helpful. But definitely you have to be your advocate, and the medical teams will listen to you. You have the right to deny things and ask for other things. So that's the number one.
Definitely.
You're
And
in
I
charge of you in every way.
Yes, most definitely. And I love even the point you made about if you're going with family members, or, elderly family members like parents or grandparents that are going through health issues. And if you're, helping to care for them, also yourself asking questions so you can understand what your family members are going through so you can sort of help them appropriately or even stand in to go, hang on, this doesn't make sense. What's going on here? And Candida, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree with being your own advocate, of course. And also, I've seen a lot through my business through the years with the clients having all this medication and being told, and I'm absolutely not saying don't take the medication, but mainly it's like painkillers and things, and saying that they have to take them for the rest of their life. And I used to get quite annoyed about that because I knew they didn't have to, and then they found that they didn't after having various treatments with me, and not just me. It's the us that do these sorts of things. Like low blood pressure can be lowered, pain can be managed. A lot is to do with how we think, and the things that we resist. And so there are ways strategies that we can teach that. I'm not saying you probably, I was going to say, I'm not saying you can think your pain away, but you probably can, and it depends what it is, of course, and with being your own advocate, yes, but what I've noticed is that a lot of people, they know that mentally, but they don't know how, or they don't trust themselves, and they don't believe themselves. So I think a lot has to do with, like, as we educate our children, our grandchildren, the people in our lives, is to bring them back to the importance of self-knowing and the importance of self-care, and how you can do that. And that instills confidence, and it is empowering. The more sensitive we are to ourselves, the more empowered we are. And then the more we can be sensitive to others, and the more we can help them be more empowered. So I've had a lot of also and what comes to mind is the recently two clients. One client was almost died. She had sepsis, and once she was out of the danger zone, they sent her home. But the result of that was that her leg, I've never seen such an enormous leg. It had this lymphedema and cellulitis, and also it was massive, right? And the problem with that is that they sent her home, but didn't say, now you can do such and such to, you can't stay with that leg like that forever. Things have to happen. And because of the huge swelling, the skin was so tight that it would crack. And if it cracked and she got an infection, she'd be way back on death's door again, because she'd been in hospital a month with this sepsis and almost dying, right? So, and the irony of that, going back to the self-advocacy, she was a nurse all her life. And she hadn't thought, okay, lucky she thought about calling me. And so we did lymphatic drainage, we did a whole range of other things and movement stuff, and the leg went down, down, down. And then we talked about what she could, rosehip oil for the skin, just simple stuff, common sense stuff, which worked wonders. So there's a lot of that goes on, that people are sent home. I've seen it quite a lot of times, through my years, that people are sent home, and then now what do we do? Like, and I understand, like, the doctor's job is done at a certain point, but what about referring, or what about some kind of I don't know, but something. I don't know if anybody else has come across that, but I've come across that quite a bit. And yeah, but the important thing I always go back to is the self-knowing, the self-love, and the self-care, because the more that we are that, the more that we are that for others, and when we show that, and we demonstrate that to others, and then others learn from us.
Yeah, most definitely. And I love that. And I love that your beautiful client had such an amazing person to sort of come to with all that sort of stuff. Because as you said, a lot of the times, doctors don't necessarily talk to each other. Specialists don't necessarily talk to each other. A lot of the times they're just reading off charts, they're prescribing medications without actually knowing any other background. I'm incredibly lucky that the people I've dealt with, my main doctor, who I travel over an hour to see, my gynecologist, and my psychiatrist has been looped in. But a lot of the times, everybody shares like results with everybody, and what's happening and all of this sort of stuff. So I'm, when we can have people like that, can really sort of bounce off one another, or if they don't know, refer out to someone else. If this is not my wheelhouse, let's refer out. I'm going to do this or do that. I had my gynecologist who, not my gynecologist, but the gynecologist did my surgery back in February, because unfortunately I had chosen to do a hysterectomy for quality of life. And he tried to talk me out of it, and tried to talk me into all these harsh cancer treatment drugs and all this sort of stuff, which I was not having a bar of. Even tried to tell me that he didn't think it was my uterus, he thought it was my bowel. And a red flag for that was, okay, you think it's something else, but not once did you actually give me a sheet to have a scan or an endocolonoscopy or anything like that on my bowel to check. So it's like a lot of the times they can play this like, oh, not my problem, handball, and kind of like leave you in the lurch going, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And so moving on, and I'm going to start with you, Catherine, because you kind of answered this one with your last story, but if you have anything else you'd like to expand on, what is medical gaslighting and how can others recognize it?
It's basically being told that you are crazy and you have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm the doctor, therefore I know, and you don't. And it's so interesting because the more you look into what doctors actually do know, especially GPs and things like that, they get a little bit of everything. They don't get the full picture. And I found, just working and being really privileged to interview people from around the world, they all say the same thing, that, Western medicine is very much about treating the symptom and not actually looking for the cause. And deep in your heart that this isn't the answer. Like you were sharing before, Jen, about the pain medication, and Canada about, this is going on with my leg, but no one's actually doing anything. It's all about coming back to actually what is the cause of this, and choosing to look deeper and choosing to be to be heard and actually being acknowledged rather than just putting a band-aid on the symptom, and that is something we're so being conditioned to. And I find too, it's almost this expectation that we are expected to believe the doctor and give our power to them and let them be the person that tells us how to run our life and how to, stay on medication and what to do, rather than listening to our actual concerns. In Australia, it's like a 5-10 minute consult. Okay, thank you, goodbye. Whereas when you talk to people who are, having functional medicine doctors and things like that, their initial consult is at least an hour, if not two, because they're there doing the full battery of things, because they're like, no, you're a whole person. Let's see what's going on holistically. So, just being true to you, and it takes courage and strength. It really does, to stand up and go, no, I don't believe you, and to keep pushing and questioning what's going on. And I feel that's a way to get around that medical gaslighting, is you just keep pushing back. And if you don't like what people say, we've already shared that. Go get a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion, or find someone until you feel that you're actually being heard, because that is such an important part of nurturing your own health and honoring who you are.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that one, Catherine. And Denise, would you like to add on to any form of medical gaslighting, and how can we recognize it?
I think Catherine said most of it, and it was brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I feel, it's actually because we're so taught to reach outside of ourselves, we don't come back and really ask ourselves the questions, what's really going on with me? How am I feeling? What do I need to do? Because we've brought up in a system where we've got to outreach. And we've got to seek it outside of ourselves. Because they've learnt to do that, they know more than me. But we can be our own medicine person for ourselves, And when I say that, people go, oh no, because I haven't learnt anything. But, there's so many ways now that you can go and find answers for yourself. And you don't, when you consider there's oils, there's herbs, even food is medicine. Food itself is medicine. So it's about looking at the whole thing. When we're told, like salt has, when you have good salt, it has, nearly 100 vitamins and minerals and essences for our body that helps heal it. But yet when someone has a heart condition, the doctor tells them to go off salt. But yet salt is extremely relevant for the body to keep its ecosystem going. The body is a self-healing mechanism, and we separate ourselves for it, and we're taught to do that. So it's really, and that's part of the thing as well. We don't, it's about coming back and owning our own body and really knowing it. So yeah, where we're taught not to.
Beautiful. I love that. And yeah, it's coming back into self is so important, really, really knowing what is right for us and what that kind of looks and feels like. So, Candida, I'd love to ask you, how do cultural and generational beliefs influence how women advocate themselves in medical spaces?
I think that's huge. I think, and it comes back to ourselves, like how we've been brought up, and what I was saying before about the lack of confidence and belief in yourself. So if you've come from a culture that, so I'm actually Italian. I immigrated from Italy when I was 3.5, and so that was a long time ago. That was like in the 1950s. So I'm giving a lot away here, but I saw a lot, like in relation to my mother. Like I became advocate for my mother because she refused to learn the language. So I was interpreter, and so everywhere she went and everything she did, I was her interpreter, including anything medical. But I saw her I saw her fear. Her fear because, especially, perhaps it doesn't happen so much now, but in those days, she, in a strange land, not knowing the language and having to trust other people. So what developed in her was lack of trust, and fear of everything. And that sort of came into me because I absorbed that because I was like taking care of her. And I've had to recognize that within myself and then work with that, of course, you know. So that's been a big thing. So that could be a big thing for many people, and especially if they're not aware and they carry this with them all their lives. So they're carrying this lack of self-belief, this lack of confidence, this low self-esteem, because let's face, there is a lot of racial stuff even still going on, and that energy, I mean, everything is energy. So that energy, that people take that on. So I'm not sure if that's answered your question, but I think it's a huge thing. Like, what was the original question about other cultures?
So yeah, cultural and generational beliefs.
Yes, the belief. So if you believe that, you're like a stranger in this place, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't understand what's going on, that affects how you interact and how you, whether you've got the courage to advocate for yourself.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Jen, do you have anything you would like to expand or add on to that? Well, you're on mute, my love.
I think our beliefs are huge. What do we believe about our bodies? What do we believe that we need? A lot of the information I teach people are, trying to let go of limited beliefs. So that plays a huge role on our health, what we think around that. So definitely, definitely a belief system, a strong belief system about what we're capable of doing. We can heal ourselves. Um, we all can do that. Every single person on this planet has the ability to do that. And that's a belief system that many people still don't believe, even though there's many practitioners out here doing that, right? So yeah, belief systems are huge. And I believe that if we had a coordination between the holistic practitioners along with the medical teams, that would really, really just jettison into getting people healthy at a much, much quicker pace, much quicker pace. And I would love to see that happen.
Yeah.
Yes, that is so good, and something that I 100% believe as well. I'm very blessed. I'm actually on my doctor's referral list for holistic practitioner work. So I do, obviously, like modality wise, pain management specialist for hypnotherapy, as well as a whole bunch of other things. And because he's very much what is right for the patient, not necessarily what's right in the system. He has a whole list of more holistic sort of practitioners in his back pocket to help. So there is little pockets of it starting to come through, which is really, really cool to see.
Yeah,
And
I've seen a little bit of that as well because I've seen some doctors and nurses coming to learn Reiki from me, but it's more of a private one-on-one coaching. So you do see the medical staff getting into holistic healing a little bit, but even just if they have the energy system while they're around patients, that alone can really help the health of a patient. So I am really happy to see that. I don't know. I haven't seen where, at least the clients that have come to me, the doctors and nurses, they don't really put that out into the public. But I'm really happy to see that that's happening. So I think we're seeing some good movement there.
most definitely. And Denise, once I find the question, what role does trauma, personal, generational, play in women, and how women engage in the healthcare system?
Yeah, that's a big question, actually. I feel that, we're the way we're born and how we're brought up can bring on the trauma of how we lead in life. So, women, especially with my generation, and I would say younger generations as well. Like, I remember bringing up my children the same way I was brought up, but not as harsh. And I was more open about natural medicine, walking in that side of the field. But, the generation of bringing up how I should behave, what life looks like for me in that system. It was very tight, and actually breaking free from that creates trauma as well, because you're not the same as everybody else. So it's about coming out of a system and actually seeing yourself as your own system and actually navigating from that place. And we're all, I suppose, looking for ourselves, but don't realize we're looking for ourselves. So we carry the trauma and we play that out in life. So it's a navigation. And for women, for men and women, it is difficult. And like I keep saying to my husband, this is a journey. It's not a one-off fix. It's not, oh, I can see where that's happened and I can see how that plays out in my body, and I can see where I can reach out to the medical, but I can also see where I reach out to myself. Oh, I'm okay now. But then the next thing shows up for me to go, okay, what's going on here? It's like a child who, when I see children are such the perfect example, because they navigate life in feeling, and they navigate it, they feel everything, so they'll act out on that. And it's like a vehicle to show us that's what we need to do. And then they lose that because they fall into a system again. And the medical is part of that as well, because they offer a quick fix that doesn't allow longevity. It's a quick fix to mask like the symptoms, not the cause, as Catherine was saying. So it's very much trauma is we're built until we're ready to open ourselves up to see who we truly are. And I do see, as you, Sky, and Jen were saying, the medical is starting to realize that now, and starting to see and help people, send people to places that people are truly opening people up to become quite self-responsible, is the word I like to use, because no one's like me. No one will ever be like me. They've got a similar trauma, but it's not going to affect them the way it affected me. Like, you look at your siblings in your home, if you have siblings, when you were growing up, the way mum said something to me affected me one way and affected them the other way. So that shows us that we're so individual and we're impacted differently, and we're scarred differently or traumatized differently to everybody else. So when someone looks at us, and medical looks at us as well, this is what the book says, so this is what's happening, when really that's not happening. I'm this individual, I'm impacted differently to everything in this universe. So therefore I need to see it and they need to see me. And it's beautiful that you ladies are saying that it's coming out there, and I see it as well. And that if we bring it all together, then it creates a synergy, and it creates a different ecosystem where everybody gets what they need individually. And then they get to light up and be the spark that they're supposed to be. And then we're not part of a system that keeps us in a box. And when we flourish, we lighten up and we don't carry so much. I hope that answered it.
Answered it beautifully. I love that. And Catherine, do you have anything to add or expand on what role does trauma, personal or generational, play in how women engage within the healthcare system?
Yeah, I think too, exactly what Denise was sharing. It's about, being self-empowering too, right? But so often I feel like the gaslighting symptoms actually turn people away from wanting to go to the doctor when they need support too, because they think, oh, last time I went, they didn't listen to me, or then, and it's about really overcoming a lot of even our soul trauma, right? Like those witch wounds. And it's like, hey, I want to speak up and actually say, this isn't working for me, or this medication you put me on isn't right for me. and I want to try this instead, and finding that collaborative approach so that people can be more supportive of what you're feeling to do. And I feel too that trauma comes up depending on too, I've met clients who refuse to have male doctors because they've had some trauma with being and trusting a male. So then they don't want to interact with them and instead want a female, and vice versa, So it really depends how it will show up when you go to that appointment, but also how much you can advocate for yourself. Because if you're someone that's gone through the trauma of always being told you're wrong or what you're saying isn't right, your intuition isn't correct, whatever it might be, it's going to be really hard to actually speak up and share your truth when you're going to that doctor and allowing it. And then where the generationals coming in, if your parents go, oh, it's just in our, the one going around Facebook and Instagram at the moment is, oh, it's just in my family. In my family, we're all overweight. In my family, we all have heart disease. In my family, they blame it on the generational line and genetics when it's actually, well, no, there's so many other things at play. Like there's so many, there's when you start to look into epigenetics, especially from an energetic point of view, it's actually no, there are things that have caused this expression in you, and it can be the trauma that triggers that gene expression, but there hasn't been that discussion yet coming out in the medical world and it's starting, they've done all the studies with twins, and when twins get separated at birth and they have completely different gene expressions, even though technically they have the same DNA, which is now discrediting that whole, oh, it's in my family line and that sort of thing. So you've got that aspect of generational, and then you've got the other aspect of generational is like, but my mum said, when this happens, we do this, or we take this, or, and so you've got to unpack that as well. So there's so many things you have to unpack in order to become your own self-advocate and in order to really share what you want to share in that world, in that space.
Beautiful. Yeah. And that is so true and so right. What you said about, like the witch wound and the soul healing, how many generations were sort of women suppressed, and really like a little factoid, it was only in the 1990s that women's medical health and women's medical conditions and stuff like that were actually studied with women rather than, women being treated as small men, essentially, and how things interact and act differently in women. Like little story time. I was late diagnosed as ADHD as a woman, and I decided, at the last minute, I think I want to be, on medication and all that sort of stuff. I'm no longer on medication because it doesn't fucking agree with me. But then I went on medication, and I had some issues. And then when I started menopause, I had a lot of issues. And I even went to my psychiatrist, who I'm now asking for a new one, because I said, look, this is really not agreeing with me. It's not interacting with my hormones very well at all, and all that sort of stuff. I'd love to have more of a holistic or an alternative or a natural management plan. And his response was, you just need to stay on them. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm out of here. See you later. And it is literally because, we've had lots of success with this medication. On men who don't have any of the hormone fluctuations or any of the other things going on that women do. So actually being treated as a completely different entity, to our male counterparts is super important. For these last two questions, I'm just gonna throw it to the board. Gonna make things a little bit differently. So if you wish to sort of add something or answer this question, throw up your hand or just start talking. What's up, Sophia?
I didn't realize I was off mute. Sorry.
That's okay, love.
This will be edited.
Love it. So I'm going to reword this one a little bit, because I really want to answer like practitioners, doctors, anyone sort of in any sort of field. How can we shift from a fix-it model to more of a collaboration, person-centered approach, especially with working with women? Anyone want to chime in?
So I think, again, it comes down to education, because it's not something that we can actually go out and fix, but through how we do our businesses, how we interact with our clients, how we are with our children, grandchildren, people around us. And one of the things that I've noticed is really, really helpful. I don't actually like putting a lot of posts up on Facebook, but I've been doing for the past few years some educational videos. It started back in COVID. I decided that's how I could help, is to help educate about fear and what that does to the nervous system and the immune system, and talk about the immune system, and then what you can do, just simple breathing things that you can do, like the breath will literally cure so much, just doing the right kind of breathing. And I think that the more that we put our information, quality information that's going to be helpful, and that it's not just telling people this, this, and this, but then how can you do it? Like, for example, the being your own advocate again. I mean, but if someone sees that or hears that doesn't have that confidence, then what can they do about that? That kind of thing. Like, I've seen people come through my business, and through my spiritual life coaching, and traumas that they've had from childhood that they didn't know they had, but they knew that their life wasn't working in a particular area, and sometimes in all areas. So I would say, if we look at our life, and not for us, because obviously but we're all learning still, we've still got stuff that keeps coming up. What area isn't working the way I would like it to? And start questioning why, and how we can fix this kind of stuff is, I think, just by educating as much as we can in our own fields and in our own lives. And as we know, energy moves, so the energy of that will move through and add to the like energy, in the field. So that's one way I think that we could do.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I think well, I feel that, let us be the gap fillers.
Yeah.
And also encouraging everyone out there to become their own what do you call it? Going out and finding out the information, and then having us there and those who actually have done a lot of work and know more to actually fill those gaps for them. Don't let us be the ones to also tell them what to do, for them to educate themselves. It's that real self-responsibility of really knowing themselves, because when I know myself, I can come to you and go, hey, this is what's really going on, and I'm not really sure what to do with that.
Sure.
And I know that you've gone through this and you're well educated in that more than I am. I've touched on this. This is what I've learned. Can you fill that gap for me?
Yes,
Because
I agree.
it's not about us being the one who do all the healing. It's about educating and showing people how to self-heal, how to really know themselves. Because like Jen also said, we can heal our bodies. We've just forgotten how to be our own healer, how to be our own medicine woman, because we do it for our kids. We just sometimes just know how to look after that problem for them.
Yes, and I think really importantly is, as we heal, and the understanding and the knowing of this, that as we heal ourselves, we help to heal everybody else, and just through the energy expansion of it, so then to continuously stay on our own healing journey and just expand more and more, expand our heart energy more and more. That is a really tangible way, even though we can't see it.
Yeah.
It is happening, and I think that's a really and that's why I think we need to start, and continue with ourselves.
For the medical to see themselves as well as that gap filler, instead of seeing them as the person who's going to make everybody better.
Yes, and working as a
letting
oneness.
everyone empower themselves, and even coming back to them and letting their clients tell them the story, instead of going, oh, this is the problem. Well,
Yes,
no,
so yeah.
as an individual, I'm a being. I'm not like anybody else, so I need you to see me.
Yeah. And that we're one family, and we're working together on this planet, supposedly.
Yeah.
And that's the only way it's going to happen. But it only starts with us and continues with us.
I love that.
Each
Create the
one, I
whole
don't mean
new,
us here, but everyone, every individual.
creating that ecosystem
Yeah.
and creating that connection, which is, the ecosystem, and that raises the vibration of healing, and then it becomes more knowing for everybody. Because if it's like vibration, it touches everybody. So what I know, somebody else can know. I don't even have, it's like, because you hold that space for them. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I feel
I would
too.
agree with Denise. You had said that people need to be self-responsible. I think that's the biggest thing. People have to take responsibility for themselves. There's plenty, and then Candida with the education, there's so much education out there, so much education about how to self-heal. There's so many practitioners, there's so many classes you can go to try this. And I think that goes back to belief systems. Everyone can do this. Then there's all sorts of mindset classes you can take. So, the body's just an instrument of the mind. The body is our instrument to tell us exactly what's going on. And it's such a great tool for us while we're living here on earth. And that's why we can't over medicate it, because then we're not getting the signals of, hey, what's going on? What's going on here? So those are the type of things that people need to get educated on, and they can self-heal.
Yeah, I love that, Jen, especially because it's that body wisdom, right? Like we don't talk about it enough that, if your shoulder starts hurting for no reason out of nowhere, ask why is it hurting. And I wanted to add to your lady's comments is that I feel to instilling curiosity in people and to ask questions. And I feel that's something like a little risk that people can take is if, you want to start looking after your health and you're unpacking all the trauma and everything associated with that, is to learn to go, oh, maybe I can ask one question, or maybe I should start researching the medication that they've put me on because I don't feel good on it anymore, and starting to take, as you were saying, taking that power back for yourself so that you can be more curious. And if they won't answer your questions, that I've always said that's a red flag. If they don't want to help you find the information or help you go learn how to self-heal and come back to yourself, then that is concern in itself.
Yeah.
100.
Seeing that truth of yourself, allowing yourself to know, and truth can be good and bad, but out of both of them comes miracles. Out of it comes the change for you. Out of it comes, I see myself more, I take more power, and I can speak up and keep asking more questions, and not leaving it to somebody else to tell me this is the narrative of my life. I get to narrate my life. I get to change me. And that's the most empowering thing you can do.
And knowing that we can change our story anytime.
Mm.
Just like I think Denise, the other lady was saying, sorry, I forgot your name, about the belief systems. We can just change the story of our life just by the way we think about our life. We can change our perception. Yeah.
And I love, Catherine, you said curiosity. If you watch children, they'll go, why? 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 They continuously get curious about every tiny little thing because, they get to know themselves more around that. So they're always looking for the answers, always looking for why am I feeling this way? Why is that happening that way? Why is that doing that? And that we've got to go back to childlike, that curiosity, that wonder, that magic that shows us everything. Such a beautiful vibration. It's a beautiful energy, yeah.
Most definitely, and 100%. And on the side of education, if anyone is wanting to dive into anything more or anything like that, totally not affiliated, but this is one of my favorite resources that I use quite a lot with clients, anything like that. It's a book called The Secret Language of Your Body by Inner Siegel. It's fantastic. Excuse me, I've got little midges flying around in front of my screen. It is a fantastic resource on anything to do with pain or anything like that. It's also on physical conditions as well. And it actually shares with you what's actually trapped inside the body that is causing those things. So our health issues, our health conditions, our pain, all that sort of stuff, there is always a mental, emotional, causation behind it. And a lot of the times it is the body trying to get your attention. And it is a lot about sort of not placing, as Catherine said, not placing a band-aid over the symptoms, but uncovering why they're here in the first place. And you've got something to add,
Oh
Catherine?
yeah, I use this one. So
Yeah.
this is Metaphysical Anatomy by Dr. Yvette Rose. And it's like Ina Segal's book, but way more detailed, way more detailed. And like you can see how thick it is and how well I use it. But the biggest thing with it is exactly like you said, Sky, is to understand that there's usually an emotional component underneath it. And she's actually got one called the psychosomatics of children. And I don't use that one a lot with my clients because it's very triggering, because a lot of what children are experiencing comes from the parents as well. So, there's that understanding of healing. And I feel just, the more you dig into it and the more you're curious about it, and, we're in a day and age where you can actually Google these things, spiritual meaning of left shoulder pain, and it will give you kind of insight into those little glimpses of like, oh, and this is where you learn to use your discernment too. Like that resonates with me, that doesn't resonate with me. And that was the thing with metaphysical anatomy, because there's so many possible things. Usually it's the first thing that you're drawn to. Or I laughed, I had a client the other day and the book got knocked off the table. And then where it opened, I was like, I feel to share this with you. And she goes, oh yeah, that's the emotional component happening in my life right now. And I was like, okay, well, if that keeps happening, apparently we're going to get to ulcers, So it's, really understanding and being curious about that underlying cause of what's going on. And the education part is self-educating too, which comes back to that whole thing of just what does this mean, and being able to, and what is it teaching me, and asking those questions in such a compassionate way.
Beautiful. I love that. And as we're drawing to the end of our hour, I'd love to take a moment, one, to say thank you so much for all these beautiful panelists for coming on and sharing this discussion with me today. But I'd also like, I'll go around the room, go around the screen. And I want you guys to share what is on offer for you guys at the minute. How can people find you? How can people work with you? All right, I'm going to start with Jen because she's at the top of my screen. So yeah, how can people find you and what have you got on offer at the moment?
Yeah, people can find me at my website, which is naturalenergyhealing.life. And I hold free every Thursday, the first Thursday of each month. I hold free question and answers about Reiki and energy healing that people can attend. And every month I do a free masterclass on mindset. So that is going to be July 22nd through the 24th. That's 1 hour a day each day. We go over belief systems, we go over the energy body, and then we go over decisions and self-image, things like that. So that's free as well. So you can sign up on my website for that.
So thank you so much, Jen. And Candido, how about you?
So people can see me through my website, Candida Vasello, at www.candidavasello.com, or at Ease Candid Health. So what I've got on offer at the moment is I've got a beautiful mentoring program that I designed earlier this year. And I'm really excited about that program because it really, I designed it with the idea of, so for example, people who think they're doing okay-ish in life, but there's still something they think they're missing, or they're not quite happy in some area, but they don't understand why. And so I have like a very sort of deep spiritual background. I studied with a spiritual teacher for 16 years. And so I bring all of my skills to the table for that mentoring program. And so for people that don't have the time, commitment that a coaching program would take, so it's less time commitment, it's less structured, but it helps you to just someone to walk beside you. And if you need course correcting, if you need guidance, because I think we all need something like that in our life. And so I'm really excited about that program. And so you can find out about that through my website or contact me directly, Facebook page, YouTube channel. I'm messing around with Instagram and I'm not quite getting Instagram, but I'm there. LinkedIn, those sorts of places. I would just like to say one thing that I've had this as my thing like for so many years, that, and it's at the bottom of all my emails. We can live and learn through joy and happiness. We don't have to suffer. And I think if we can say that to ourselves, we can live and learn through joy and happiness. So we think, a lot of us think we have to, in order to learn, we have to suffer. This is what we're doing, but we don't have to do it that way. So yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much. That's so amazing.
My pleasure. Yeah.
And Catherine, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Sky. So at the end of this month, if anyone lives near Byron Bay in Australia, I'm running a retreat about coming back to your soul-aligned business. So creating a business that aligns with you so you can support yourself and nourish you. And I'm really excited about it because there's nothing really out there that does this. So you actually leave with the exact steps to make your dream into reality so it doesn't stay a fantasy anymore. And then also on my website, which is Willow Healing, so Willow's WILLOW healing.org. You can find my one-on-one offerings, so you can book in for intuitive healing sessions or spiritual epigenetics, which is playing with the DNA. And I've also written a book which is available on Amazon called Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice. So you can get that through my website or Amazon anywhere in the world. So yeah.
That's how exciting. And I'm in WA, unfortunately. But that sounds mint. And Denise, how about you?
For me, I'm happy just to have a discussion because because there's some people that have never done this before, never known what to do. I love having those conversations on, what does it look like for you? How to start, really coming back to yourself, how you navigate yourself. What does it look like for you? Learning curiosity, just really having that conversation. And, sometimes I'm not the person for you, but there's lovely people out there that I can direct you to. And I do intuitive healing as well. And I'm on my Facebook or Instagram. So reach out there and, it starts with a conversation. It starts with, I'm not sure what I need to do, but I know I need to do this, and I love helping people navigate themselves back to their true essence of themselves and heal and work through because I love going to the core, which is back to our what's happening here and going back and finding the core, because how I'm living here, there's the core of the trauma or the discomfort in their life, allowing them to see that so they can then, I suppose, uncover and unravel from the core instead of working from here going backwards. It's like, okay, I'm here, but let's go to where it started. Yeah. So reach out.
I love that. And I'm going to take the time now to call Sophia back. And just like magic, there she is.
Thank you ever so much, Sky. This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you for facilitating it. And thank you for Candida and Catherine and Denise and Jen for sharing your wisdom. It's really an interesting topic on, how much do we trust the Western world? And, as everyone's saying, to really go within our body. For me, if I could say, our body is our medicine or our greatest doctor. Our body knows what it needs, and it's just getting in touch with it through all the methods that we've been discussing here. So thank you ever so much. Before we go, Sky, can I ask you, as a great facilitator, you actually also host a wonderful tribe for Sacred You, which does a lot about healing. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I host the Shadow Work Circle Tribe, where I jump in and teach all things sort of shadow work, inner healing, connecting with yourself, finding those parts that you've disowned, rejected, and suppressed in order to be liked, loved, and accepted. And it is an incredibly safe space for us to sort of really uncover and love and integrate those parts back into ourselves, which is essentially the ultimate form of self-love, as well as incredibly healing. You know, as a lot as the my beautiful panelists here today is sort of like, you know, knowing yourself, trusting yourself, having that inner voice, you know, doing all things boundaries, you know, that confidence within, all those sort of inner beautiful inner healing things come down to integration work. So yes, I am currently fortnightly on a Monday afternoon. It's afternoon as well. Um, you know, so we sort of really catch up. I dive into, you know, different shadow aspects, different shadow archetypes, or we have discussion, Q&A, all of those sort of fun things. So I'm really trying to cultivate a nice, safe place for people to come in and ask questions and learn and grow.
Thank you. And I have the benefit of being part of that quite often. And for everyone out there who is watching, do click on the links below. Not just to reach out to all these amazing women, do that, including Sky and all the participants here, but also to find out about Sky's tribe, because it is, you know, as we say, we've all got shadow. It's all part of healing. And for me, when I'm able to heal that shadow part of me, then the physical part, the physical body also becomes very, very healthy as well as I heal. A lot of physical stuff too. And with us also is Catherine, and Catherine runs a little bit of one of our different tribes. Catherine is the host of our Empowered Entrepreneurs, not quite into the health and healing part, but as a host, Catherine is also very intuitive. So Catherine, tell us about your tribe very, very quickly. And how does health connect with being an entrepreneur?
If you don't have your health, you don't have your wealth, right? So, you know, you really need to focus on honoring your health in order to show up in your business, and they don't have to be separate, because if you don't have the income coming in, how do you look after your health to the fullest potential that you want to? So, the Empowered Entrepreneur Tribe is beautiful women coming together and actually sharing what their focus is at the moment and getting intuitive coaching. Like, hey, this is what you can do. And it's about supporting each other too. And it's really nice to have a group of people show up, because we all have different ideas and we've been through different experiences in our life. So it's really, that's where the empowerment comes from. It's like, okay, this is where you're stuck. And the greatest thing I was ever told is a mirror can't see herself. So, you know, just remembering that sometimes we need that outside discussion to reflect back to us what might be helping us move forward to the next step if we are feeling really stuck.
Absolutely. And thank you. And again, do click on the links below to find out about the Empowered Entrepreneurs, or just check out Sacred You at Sacred You, that's the letter U, .love. Come and join us for free by putting /join free on it. And you get to see all our tribes live in our own village community, our own online community, plus everything else that we offer. Coming up next week, our beautiful Denise, I do believe, is back with a wonderful panel discussion. I'm just trying to bring it up. No, our beautiful Joe is coming in, one of our other hosts, with are my emotions filtered or unfiltered? Discovering where my emotions come from. But Denise will be back with us as a participant. Really looking forward to that. And for, like I said, for everyone else, just click on the links, check us all out. Come and join Sacred You. We've got so much on offer. And I want to thank all these wonderful women for giving up an hour of their time to share their wisdom, their experience about, you know, being a woman in a modern world, basically. Do we go down the doctor path, the traditional, or do we go down the alternative? And that's listening to our bodies and other healers. So thank you.